All right, Porch commentary number 2, sports commentary number 2. My mother-in-law, Debbie Freeman, is here. Does not want to be on camera. She's a big Ole Miss fan, but we get along great so far. I want to explain something. I am not anti-pay the players. All right, hold on. I'll start with this. I'm not, quote unquote, against NIL. But because of the stance and some things that I have argued and brought up over the last 6 months to a year, people have sometimes gotten the impression, oh, well, Matt's, against NIL. He's anti-NIL. I'm past that point. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, for me or anyone to say, I'm against name, image, and likeness, that would be like saying, I'm against the rain. I'm against it. It would make about as much sense. It's going to rain if it wants to or not. Whether I'm against it, it's just a matter of fact. So the reality is, pay the players, call it NIL. It's a matter of fact. It's a fact of life. It's not going away. Some element of it's always been here under the table. Now it's just present everywhere. What would even be the point of deciding, oh, I'm against it? Okay, I may not like it. If you ask my opinion, should you still value the education? Yeah, above everything else. But that's not even what we're arguing here. Okay, so first I will say, I've never made a stance saying I'm against NIL, quote unquote. Here's what I'm against. Calling it NIL. Name, image, and likeness. It's basically a lie. And I understand there's like this one case you can find out here of some future first round pick who got a real marketing deal. Okay? But there's like 1 or 2 of those a year that are huge marketing deals. Every big time roster has money being paid to players first string, second string across an 85-man roster. So to call it name, image, and likeness, 99.9% of the money that's getting exchanged under this NIL umbrella has nothing to do with anybody's name, has nothing to do with an image, and has nothing to do with a likeness. It's strictly a pay for play. That's what it is. So why not just deal with it and call it that? If you want to drive this towards figuring out a structure that's going to make sense anyway, long term, you're going to fix something. Well, the first thing you got to do is diagnose it correctly. It'd be like if I take my car to a mechanic. It's making a sound. It's running, but it's rattle, rattle, rattle. I know something, and eventually it's going to cause a real problem if I keep letting it go. So I take it to the mechanic. Well, if he misdiagnoses it to begin with, I can spend all kinds of money and all kinds of time, and I'm actually not going to fix the problem. So the most important step is just let's call it what it is and diagnose it. Well, if we're still out here pretending as large body of media, fans, anybody covering this stuff, even the people who give quotes about it that are decision makers, and if all they ever do is continue to frame this as quote unquote name, image, and likeness, well, guess what? It's a big lie. You're going to drive it down the wrong path. Call it what it is. It's paying them to play, paying them to stay in school and not leave, and deal with it as such. That's all I've said on that. And here's the other thing. I say I'm not against NIL. Here's the other thing that I think is the issue, is we're sitting here right now at this moment without some sort of structure of the rules to play the game. If you and I are going to play a game, you tell me the rules, we'll go play the game. You play by them, I play by them. If you cheat and get caught, you're out. If I cheat and I get caught, I'm out. But we play by the rules, win or lose. If we go over here to this basketball, go and play horse, let's decide what the rules of horse are, and then we play the game, right? Well, how is it that we can have Power 5 conference, 60-something Power 5 schools, 120 Division I schools, yet we can't figure out the rules to play by and how we're going to enforce the rules, okay? And then you go, somebody might go, well, Matt, they're trying. And these states keep making these laws now that say the NCAA cannot punish them for that stuff in their state. Okay, I get it. But how long have we been working on this now? Are we 2 years into it? So we're 2 years into it, we make no headway whatsoever, just let it go. People that are in charge are way too smart for it to have gone 2 years without making any headway at all. I will give them credit. I absolutely. The conference commissioners, the ADs, they're trying in some ways. But like this recent step of they're going to go to Congress and try to get federal stuff done, get a federal, you know, what would you call it? A federal, basically, legislation that would cover NIL for colleges coast to coast, so that, you know, state laws wouldn't, you know, one up each other. What in recent history would make anybody think that anything was going to get done by going to Congress for that, especially short term? They knew before they went up there they weren't going to get anything done. Now, if it's a step, if it's a box you have to check before you go do your own thing or something, or break it up, maybe fine. But the idea that they were actually going to get anything done in Washington, D.C., not happening. I don't like that we lie about what it is. And then the other thing I don't like is we're 2 years into it, and it is the fans who are expected to fund the roster. I can't understand that. Again, if they want to come out and say, okay, this is our league, and in our league, our roster is going to be fan funded. Well, if everybody knows that, I mean, let's call it what it is. Where's the money going that the sport makes? This all began because the sport had ballooned in this billion-dollar industry, and people started going, well, the players don't get anything. In fact, they can't even earn money, marketing dollars, off their own name, image, and likeness. That isn't right. Well, guess what? It isn't right. That's how all this argument started. Yet we've gotten it to a point where this big billion-dollar industry, the money that is earned, the revenue that is generated from the sport, is not going to players. But we're in a pay-for-play era, that's reality, and to pay the players, it must be funded by the fan base. Teachers, doctors, dentists, farmers, bankers, you send your money in so that we can fund our roster. Because, and oh, by the way, if we lose because we don't have great players, there's a little blood on your hands. You're going to feel a little guilty because you didn't give to our collective. See, you cannot convince me that that's right or that it makes any sense at all. I'm not against a player, you know, who's a big-time star, anybody. Marketing deals, whatever, you can go do an ad for a car dealership, fine, if that's the deal. If you're telling me we live in an era where we're going to pay all the players, the whole roster, which is happening, fine, do it. But after 2 years, we don't have some sort of structure. You supposedly have an NCAA membership body, and you can't enforce your own rules. Those are the things that I have argued. I'm not against NIL. I'm not against, what's the point of being against paying the players? Again, that'd be like saying, I'm against heat. I hate heat, I'm against it. Well, so what? And I'll say this too. There's some really fine people out here, good folks that are working their fanny off for very little in return. In some cases, nothing in return. Working on the collectives at different schools because they have to. It's a necessity. They realized it. A lot of the people out there doing that for their schools, because of the lack of structure and the lack of leadership among NCAA, was some of the most unselfish people you could find involved with college athletics. They saw that they had no choice, so we had to raise money to pay the players. Somebody's got to do it. They jumped in and did it. My problem is you cannot make sense of, number one, what we call it. What we call it is not reality. And number two, where the money is coming from. Are we in a pay-for-play era? Yes. Then where should the money come from to pay the players? If I ask 1,000 college football fans, if I ask 10,000, the least answer I get is that the money to pay the players should come from the fans' pockets. That's never the answer, yet that's where we are. That's the problem I have with it.